Well, welcome to another episode of Real Estate AI Flash. And today, my guest is Kat Torre. She's a brand consultant, speaker, and podcaster. I'm sure we'll get into this, specializing in guiding third culture entrepreneurs to align personal values with professional growth, thereby building legacy driven brands. And I can't wait to get into all things AI. And we live in an AI soaked world. And how do you maintain authenticity and build a brand that survives the test of time? Kat, welcome to the pod.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Rajeev.
Yeah. You know, when you and I were first connected, I heard you speak live at the 1,000 Watt Brand Summit in Dallas, and then we connected in the Facebook group, and here we are. And I felt like, you know, and I'm teaching AI, as you know, and
Yes.
kind of do a lot of stuff with AI, and obviously this podcast is about AI.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like people really are missing how do you maintain your human touch and authenticity. And I felt like you would add so much to this pod. So before we dive in, and I get too excited, I would love for you to share your background and your journey and how you got to being the brand architect you are today.
Yeah. Well, it, like many of the listeners and watchers of this pod, involves lots of moments of reinvention, lots of failures, lots of mistakes, lots of like, oh shit, what now types of moments. I was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. I fancied myself a corporate city girl once upon a time. I pursued a nursing degree, withdrew from that, and then moved cross country in 2016 to launch my first startup because, in full transparency, I was running away from some difficult life things. But it's funny, when you find yourself running away from something, you end up finding yourself on the other side of it all. And so I work with brands, personal brands, company brands, although I appreciate the personal brand because it's so much fun working with people directly rather than large behemoth teams and companies across industries, right? So my many past lives, I've worked in fitness, interior design, med spas, wellness, landscaping, and now luxury real estate. So it's given me a really good holistic perspective on what brand is and how it really helps accelerate business.
Yeah, for sure. And you're doing great work. I mean, I keep up with you on social, and obviously you have your own pod, which we'll get to here soon. But so, you know, we've all had our own light bulb moment with AI,
Yeah.
whenever that was in the last 2 years. Mine was like Thanksgiving weekend 2022.
Okay.
And it just feels like it seems like 2 years of AI is like a decade of
Yes.
technology. So it's breakneck speed. When was your first light bulb moment of the generative AI?
Yeah. So it might catch you by surprise. And I've actually only been seriously committing myself to leveraging AI for just under a year. So I am so new and don't know very much of it. But the light bulb moment came when I had taken an updated DISC assessment to really understand myself, my strengths, my blind spots, so to speak. As a consultant, I never think that I know and have all the answers. I just know how to ask good questions. But when I put my DISC assessment into my custom GPT that I had built for myself, I started realizing, because I was incorporating that into my recommendations, into my lead gen strategy, into my client communications. And the light bulb was realizing that AI helped illuminate the blind spots in my business.
Yeah.
Things that I didn't even know existed, that I didn't even know I should be asking about.
Yeah.
And not to say that I took it and ran with it immediately and did all the things. But knowing your blind spots, so at the click of a button, you could see where you're overlooking something. That was huge for me.
For sure. Yeah. You mentioned custom GPTs. Interestingly enough, I'm a big health, when I focus on my health, just like, you entered through the fitness industry. So
Yeah.
I have a custom GPT for my own things I want to track for my health.
Okay.
So when I go to the grocery store and I'm not sure, should I buy this or not? I just simply take a picture of the nutritional label
Okay.
and post it in my GPT, and it'll give me a score
Oh.
based on what I've trained it to do.
Yeah.
And you can take a picture of your plate of food you're about to consume. It'll tell you.
It's so wild, the world we live in.
Right? Yeah, it's crazy. But I think it's about personalization and knowing what to apply and when not to apply it.
Yeah.
And human in the loop. I'm a big believer of human in the loop in all things AI. So that's great. So you have a brand, you have a strategy background, branding, authenticity, personal brand, also corporate brands. But what strategies do you think? I mean, obviously we have a few thousand people that listen to our pod, whether agents or brokers. how would you go about recommending integrating AI without really compromising the personal touch?
Yeah. So I look at, and this analogy I'll share because everything that I share after this is going to be based on that. AI is the gasoline. It is technological gasoline. It is not the spark or the flame itself. You are the spark, you are the flame, the what you want, where you're going, why you even care enough to put yourself through this crazy entrepreneurial ride. That's got to come from you. Do not look for that in AI. AI is going to illuminate the how, because when you know the why and you know the what, the how is really easy. You'll
Yeah,
figure out the how. AI just helps you collapse time and figure out the how in fractions of seconds instead of several weeks trying to figure it out on your own, right?
100%. Yeah. Just to pause there a little bit, I did a webinar with a bunch of agents today.
Hmm.
And one of the things we were talking about is how it can help you write a business plan.
Yep.
But to your point, you can't just go wild ducking and asking to write a business. You got to sort of have a vision. Where do you want to go?
Yep.
So it's like a human sandwich, almost like, start
Yep.
with a human idea.
Hmm.
AI accelerates. I love what you just said, collapses time.
Yeah.
But it's still, again, review it, humanize it, and then, it gets to you to the finish line faster with
Hmm.
AI. So.
And for anybody listening in, if you are a team of one, because that is definitely still a team, or two,
Yeah.
or 200, or 2,000, I love using AI to help figure out ways that you can all work more cohesively with your team. Have every single person on your team take a disc assessment, throw
Yeah.
that into a custom GPT, and it will help you communicate better, have things land better, have better conflict resolution, making sure everybody's rowing in the same direction. Because the bigger the team, the greater the risk of inconsistent brand delivery, of miscommunications, of breakdowns where you damage trust, you hamper loyalty, and that's not going to look good for your bottom line. So that's the first thing I always recommend. Any new client I take on, I'm like, have everybody on your team take a disc assessment, and we're going to do a specific custom GPT for internal team communication and collaboration.
That's a great idea. I mean, piggybacking on some of that stuff, one of my close friends has a small business, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one 2-person shop, and trying to be you're an HR manager one day, you're like running the
Yeah.
business one day. So, and I'm a firm believer in that your vibe attracts your tribe. You
Yes.
know what kind of people you're looking for, whether it's
Yep.
your team, brokerage, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And if you built a custom GPT about what you care for, whether
Mm-hmm.
you throw in a disc assessment or you can also do it on the resume side. HR people can do this.
Oh yeah. Reverse engineer.
Who you're looking for, and then put your resume in there and give it a score. And at least it's a starting point for some discussion. So it's a great takeaway.
Yeah.
And as we have a lot of large real estate teams that run in brokerages,
Mm-hmm.
and some people, they get people on board and it's not a good fit.
Right. But we
Right.
don't ever quite know why, right? We can't,
Right.
our gut feeling, which according to neuroscientist Dr. Tara Swart says it's the equivalent of all of your stored wisdom, lived
Yeah.
and inherited. Pay attention to it. But AI can tell you and articulate why,
Yeah.
right? And illuminate that. So powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, AI, I think, does really well with structured data. Like the more
Yes.
data you give it, I mean, usually our gut is right, but, I tell people that, if you have to go with a personal opinion, let's
Mhm.
just go with mine. But if you have data, let's talk data, right?
Yes.
But yeah, data, I mean, I think that it does really well with data.
Hmm.
So I think that's a great takeaway. Anything else you're seeing that you feel, especially with running a 1-2-person company as
Yeah.
a brand strategist? What
So
are some other areas you're seeing as you talk to your clients as well?
yeah. So I think the other thing, I can't remember who said this quote, but Brian Barrero of 1000 Watt, co-founder of 1000 Watt, told me this quote. He's like, I can't remember who said it, but I'm giving indirect credit to Brian for bringing it to my attention, is that the beginning of expertise is simply recognizing patterns.
Yeah.
And AI's ability to recognize patterns and trends. Again, it's an extension of illuminating your blind spots, but I'll give you an example, Rajeev. I had a client take screenshots of all of their Google reviews, all of their email feedback. Anytime a consumer or client said something about them, their team, their brand, their business, we put it into a giant PDF. We dropped it into their custom GPT and we said to analyze for trends, patterns, key insights, value recognition, value prop recognition, what elements of the brand story resonated, all the particulars and ingredients that go into developing a brand. And we just had it extract from what people were saying, because a huge misunderstanding I see is that people have this idea of what a brand is, but then, or their brand, but then they're not gut checking it with what the market is telling them. So
the
I
public
think
perception of the brand.
Huge, right? And then what we do after that is it has all those insights, it has all those takeaways. You ask it, okay, now how do I incorporate that into my marketing? Because a powerful brand, well, a brand in general, repels as much as it attracts. Like a magnet doesn't attract 2 charges, it attracts 1 charge.
Yeah.
So you can use that. You don't have to come up with something new. AI can help glean gold from what is already out there.
Yeah, and I think one of the things there's several guests we've had on the pod. One of them said they put all their client obviously they didn't put client confidential information, but they put all the type of personas. So they put all their client information without removing all the identifiable information.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT or any AI tool gave them personas for their clients as to who gets attracted to them as a team. And then they reverse engineered that and decided to market to that type of persona.
Yep.
So I think, if you didn't have it, how would you even land at that? The amount of volume of work and
the time. We live in such a privileged era that what took our predecessors months, years, we can do in seconds. It is insane. It can also be overwhelming, which is when sometimes I still see clients struggle with analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
But just take it and run with it and innovate and iterate.
Yeah, no, I one of the quotes, and I wish I knew who said this, but you can't think big enough with AI. On the other hand, you can't think small enough. So sometimes people get walloped in the moment.
Yeah.
Oh, I do so many things, but you got to start somewhere. Start small. And the more light bulb moments people have, what's possible. You know? So,
the other thing for individuals that I find really helpful is to use AI to process your thoughts and to process your feelings. I don't know about you, Rajeev, but I'll voice note more often than I'll type into ChatGPT.
I'm glad you brought that up.
And just use it. Oh, I voice note. Life hack, voice note. Just do it, right?
100%. Yeah.
And if you're trying to figure out a difficult problem, I guarantee you probably already know the answer. You just need to brain dump and declutter your mind. And AI, again, can help really analyze without your blind spots, without your triggers, without any of the little soft stuff that can get in the way, what the solution is and really help you feel more clear.
Interesting. I'm glad you brought it up because one of the things we talked about on our webinars, I think audio computing is going to explode this year, personally.
Yeah.
Because I think most people think technology is still realtors in my mind, the people that I hang out with, they're amazing human beings at connecting with people, good realtors, but they're average at best with technology.
Right.
And so they struggle with embracing tech, but if you could just simply talk and have voice agents. So interesting side note, I was coming back from Virginia the other day. And I had I finished my podcast listening. I had an hour to kill. I said, you know what? Let me fire up advanced voice mode. I do this all the time now. And I started just having a dialogue with ChatGPT and learned about a topic I was clueless in.
There you go.
Just education, or you can even talk to a custom GPT and get more intel on certain things. Voice, I think voice is huge.
Yeah. It absolutely is. It is. And
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I always bring it back to, though, it is the gasoline on the fire. You need to bring the fire. You need to bring the creativity. You need to bring you. It helps you be more of you. It doesn't replace you.
100%.
Right?
Yeah, no, I tell that, AI automates the ordinary so you can personalize the extraordinary.
Oh, that's good.
Which is really, the last mile is the human relationship. That's what drives business for you.
Yeah.
And if you can automate the back end and other things you do, you get the gift of time that you can then choose to invest in people and do more client-facing things. So I think that's where the big wins are going to be with AI. So cool. What else, Kat? Anything else that you're seeing?
I'm really seeing people use this to standardize and create SOPs in their business.
SOPs,
I see really successful individuals scale to a certain point, and then they either burn out and burn their business down to the ground, or they are losing clients as quickly as they're adding clients because they're just so focused on chasing the next thing rather than having the supportive structure in place to support sustainability and to cultivate loyalty.
Yeah.
SOPs aren't sexy, Rajiv. Nobody likes when they
No.
say it's like, ugh. But like, let me tell you, it's really cool when you are able to delegate and to trust your team members or trust technology to carry some of the way, but then to go that last mile and close the deal and
Yeah.
cement the relationship. I was not a fan of SOPs until I realized you get to a
Yeah,
certain
for sure.
point, you need it. And AI makes
Yeah.
it super quick and easy.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a tool, there's several in the space, but there's a tool I use called Scribe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, so good. I mean, some of these tools are like you could just simply record a video of the whole workflow and then just upload. You don't even have to talk to it. Just it dissects the workflow
Yeah.
and gives you the SOPs. So that's a great takeaway. So good. I'd love to ask my guests two questions,
Okay.
just so from a personal level. One of them is, you know, you're first of all, tell us a little bit about your podcast. I've listened to a few episodes. You co-hosted, so I'd
Thank
love to hear a
you.
little bit more.
Yeah. So it's called Not Nice, Clever. And it is about branding, marketing, money, and manifesting through the lens of being introverts in
Yeah.
business. Because my co host, my podcast partner in crime, Candace, and I are both introverts. Very much introverts, which is why we often practice the buddy system when it comes to going to events. But we are 2.5 years into having that podcast. New episodes release weekly, and we have a lot of incredible guests. And we're just really like into sharing the mic and growing our network and having conversations, yes, about branding, yes, about marketing, but more about just the story of human reinvention, of resilience, of evolution and connection.
Yeah, I heard at one of your episodes. Was that with the BAM agent?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Eric.
So that if you talk about reinvention,
Yes.
right? I mean, so great. Yeah, great podcast. Check it out. Not nice, clever. That's a very clever tagline for sure.
Thank you. We try. We try.
And yeah, exactly. And also, I meant to double click on this one, which is the third culture entrepreneur. Just talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah. So third culture is a term, and actually AI helped me discover this, which was so incredible.
Yeah.
Where my mother is from Japan. She was born and raised in Tokyo. She was a military brat and then moved stateside when she was, in middle school. But both of my grandmothers were born abroad. One grandmother in Japan, the other grandmother in Colombia, and they had a huge influence on my life growing up. And there's the term, immigrant or child of an immigrant, right? But that never quite really fully encapsulated how I felt. And so third culture are children who were raised by immigrants, but they grew up in a different landscape, a different country. They have their parents' culture or grandparents' culture. They have the culture of where they are, so America, where I was born. And then they harmonize the two and they create their own third version of it that doesn't shut out either, but it brings the best of both. And so it made sense like in my head and how I felt growing up. So that is me. And I really resonate and connect with people who view the world similarly in that way.
Well said. As you were talking about that, my parents, my wife and I were born in India.
Okay.
And we came here like 30 years ago. And we have 3 kids and all were born and brought up here. So I felt like when you're just talking to me and my wife in terms of bridging those cultures and melding the best of both worlds and things of that nature. So keep up the good work for sure in the area. So here are the 2 questions. So first question is, there's a lot of agents that listen to the podcast. Mm-hmm. Is there a book or a podcast that has influenced you more than anything else that sort of shaped where you are, Kat?
Yeah. So this is an oldie but a goodie for me as an elder millennial, but it's called Setting the Table by Danny Meyer.
Oh, wow.
And if anybody listening has ever worked as a server or a bartender or a busser or a cook in a restaurant, you might have heard his name. He's a famous restaurateur, and he wrote this book about his ethos on hospitality and how to set the table, set the experience of your customer so that it is unforgettable, remarkable, undeniable, magnetic, all those things. I love looking for inspiration outside of my own industry to learn. I recommend that book to everybody.
100%. I would add that to my list. I will add that to my list. The other one that was in not a similar vein, but I haven't read the book, so it's just one side of the story.
Yeah.
Is Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yes, Will. Great story
with
the New York hot dog.
a little bit about the restaurant experience, but there's other pieces to it. But I can't wait to get into that book. That's a great, I think it's really a good read. So cool. So, you deal with a lot of personal brands. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you're in luxury real estate. Mm-hmm. You speak at conferences. So you have a view that very few people have because they're more closely connected to the ground
Yeah.
in terms of the action. So what is the one recommendation you'd give agents listening to this podcast on building a brand in the world we live in today?
Yeah. So I'll say that a lot of agents think that they're building a brand and they're really not. And they wonder why their past clients go with somebody else. But that's a story for another day. I think that the most potent piece of advice I can give agents is to reflect on what is the promise that you make to your clients. Rajeev, I'm sure you know this. Whenever you've made a promise to your kids growing up, they never let you forget it. And if you break that promise, it is the end of the world, right? A brand promise is powerful, and it's something we can wrap our head around because we make promises every single day. Yeah. So I would really invite agents. That's a great starting point. And if you can even hone in on, when you work with me, I promise this, but the promise can't be something like you do your job, you get the home sold, you find them a home. Like, think deeper, think better, think branded. And so that would be just a reflection exercise, and have a verbal dialogue with AI about this, like, and have it challenge you. Be like, go deeper. Somebody else can offer the same thing. If somebody else can offer the same thing, it's not unique to you. Yeah.
Well said. On that note, I need to make a promise to you because you're not that far from where I live.
No.
And you moved to Philadelphia.
Yep.
So promise is next 90 days, we're going to have a cup of coffee in person.
Amazing. Right? Promise accepted.
There you go. Thank you, Kat. I appreciate your time for taking the time and adding value to our listening audience. And I look forward to seeing you at Summit.
Yes, my pleasure. I'm sure it'll be here before we know it.
That's right. Have a good one.
You too.